That what is that noise? Dressed like a highlighter. Sorry, I didn't realise you were on the piss there. I feel like my brain is leaking out of my ears at the moment. Hello, my name's Roisin and welcome or welcome back to my channel. It is October, which means it is Victober on BookTube. I will leave links to all of the information about that, the people who are running it. And I had intended to read some Victorian books in October, but if you didn't know, it's been my birthday and I have not. I've been very busy and I've not read very much at all. So I've decided to try and do a little Victober weekend reading vlog. And I'm going to try and attempt to read for 24 hours over the 3 days of this weekend. So it's Friday today. I am working today, but I'm going to be working from home because I'm not feeling particularly well. So that's the perfect time to do a mammoth reading vlog. I was intending to go for a walk this morning, but I'm not sure the weather is quite on my side. We'll see. I might attempt that. I had made a TBR, an autumn TBR, which I'll leave linked in the cards above. But since I'm only reading for a weekend, I don't think I'm going to be able to fit in Middlemarch and Anna Karenina and The Woman in White. I think particularly Middlemarch, they're all very chunky books. So the prompts for Victober included reading a book with disability or chronic illness rep, which I don't know if any of them have, reading poetry, which I have the poetry of Thomas Hardy here. Victorian, Edwardian, early 20th century poet. He was alive from 1840 to 1928. Late Victorian and then into the 20th century, but I'm counting it. So I have read Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy, and I have actually read some of his poetry before. I studied it at A-level and I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to read some Thomas Hardy poetry this weekend. I think the grey and lowering sky is perfect for reading the gloomy Thomas Hardy. I should have read it when I was in Dorset earlier in the year, but it was so sunny then. Anyway, so I will be reading the Thomas Hardy poetry. So we are going with poetry and Anna Karenina. That is the aim for this weekend. I do have some stuff to do this weekend. I need to tidy my house because I've been very busy. I'm working today, obviously. So I will bring you along with me if I do leave the house today with this very foggy, very windy weather. My cycle to work yesterday was very difficult. It was so windy. Because for now, I am going to get dressed properly, and I'm dressed on the top. I have jammies on the bottom, and poke my head out the door, see if it's worth going for a walk. So it is now the afternoon. I have finished my day's work. I have read for an hour and 13 minutes so far today. And after I finished work, I had a wee nap. A very wee nap. I'm super sleepy after that. I've literally just woken up. So, I have started listening to the audiobook of Anna Karenina. It's 2 times speed, so I'm about 5% of the way through now. It's a very long novel. Definitely won't be able to read any others in this time period, but I am enjoying it so far. It's very engaging. The translation that I have is It's translated by Louise and Alma Maud, and I am enjoying it. Yeah, like I said, it's very engaging, it's very bright and fun. It definitely has that Victorian novel vibe that I'm used to, which I like because I tried to read War and Peace and it didn't have that. No, not War and Peace, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which I tried to read and I gave up very quickly, so I can't say I gave it a good try, but it was much more difficult, whereas this has that kind of lots of cast of characters about their personalities and their like manners and the ways they interact with one another, building this society, building a view of a society. It's, you know, I've been listening to it for 2 hours and Anna Karenina hasn't actually arrived yet, although she has been mentioned. Good morning. It is not quite 8:30 in the morning, and yesterday I managed to read roughly 4 hours, which means that I have to read 10 hours over each day for the next 2 days if I want to achieve my target. We will see. I'm not very well, so that might be a theme of this vlog, that I'm struggling a little bit. Like, I had one crumpet for breakfast and I could only eat half of it, so I'm not at my best, but I have read the introduction to Thomas Hardy's poetry. As I said in my introduction, I read Thomas Hardy's poetry as part of my A-levels, so I am a little bit familiar, but I wanted to reconnect with the history of it. So he didn't start writing or publishing poetry until he was finished with all his novels, and he was in his 50s. In the 1890s, and he continues to publish poetry up until the 1920s, but the introduction describes him as a quintessentially 19th century poet. So the poetry that he publishes in the 20th century harkens back more to Victorian poetry than to the more like the emerging modernist kind of poetry of the early 20th century, influenced highly by the First World War, because he is an old man at the First World War, so he's not like involved. So I don't think there's much in the way of sort of war poetry. He's also described as like an old man poet, and he's more about the small things and nature and a sort of essentially sorrowful, tragical look at life, and lyric poetry, and his bad relationship with his wife, who he didn't really realise he loved until she died. So anyway, I am looking forward to getting into some of this actual poetry. It's been a while since I've read some poetry, so I'm going to try and read as much of this as possible. I might only read the ones that are actually from the Victorian period, so anything up to 1901. Oh, he does have some war poems. Drummer Hodge, yeah, but that's a different war, isn't it? Drummer Hodge, I think that's about the Boer War. That one I really remember because it's in the History Boys. Anyway, I am also like 15-ish% into Anna Karenina. I'm really enjoying it, actually. It's really engaging, and we have introduced Karenina. Anna Karenina and Vronsky have both been introduced now, so we are getting into that part of the story. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It feels very quintessentially Victorian novel, and obviously that's partly the translation, writing in the style of an English Victorian novel, but also Tolstoy was a huge fan of Dickens. Like, Dickens was his favourite writer, and so I can feel that kind of big cast of characters, that kind of slightly ironical eye on things, reminds me a bit of Dickens, and we can definitely see a sort of society being built up. There's lots of times when the action, for example, there's this ball right at the beginning, and the action is happening between Anna and Vronsky. That's kind of the pivotal moment, but we don't see it from Anna and Vronsky. We see it from Kitty, who is Anna's brother's sister-in-law. She is watching them, and so we see it from her perspective, and I think that that theme of watching and of the action being mediated through different characters is going to be part of the story, so I'm enjoying that. There's also been a big foreshadowing event that happened. I won't spoil it if you don't know what happens in Anna Karenina, but the only thing I knew about Anna Karenina before I watched the film even is the ending, and so I would have been aware that this was foreshadowing even if I hadn't already seen the film. We're also kind of in the minds of the characters quite well, I think. We're seeing how they think and feel about things, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the exploration of the society, and I'm looking forward to what is going to happen. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do today, apart from hopefully, fingers crossed, go on a bike ride for like an hour, hour and a half, not a super long bike ride. We'll see how well I feel. And maybe making a lasagna, like getting cozy. Feels like it is getting into more late autumn season now. That it's getting cooler and wetter, which I love. And also, like, when we got up this morning at 6:30, it was dark. So that is also nice. It's getting cozy, nights are drawing in, which I'm really excited about. For now, I will continue reading and continue timing my reading and get back to you when I've read some more. I am now about 25% of the way through Anna Karenina. We went out for tea at my boyfriend's grandma's house, and then we went to the supermarket. So I haven't been doing as much reading as I should have. I think I'm about 6.5 hours of reading, and it is 2 o'clock. So I don't know if I'm going to manage this. I've still got tomorrow, obviously, but I'll do my absolute best to get to 24 hours. I don't think the only other time I did this I managed it. But anyway, I'm enjoying it. There's a lot, I think it must have been serialised, because there's a lot of events that happen that I'm enjoying, and they're kind of foreshadowing of things, and kind of using a physical event, like a horse race situation, to show the interior emotions of people and things, and like to play out metaphorically what's going on in the actual plot. So yeah, it's enjoyable. The writing itself I'm really enjoying. There's just something that's happened just now, and I'm like, how can this have happened this early on in the book? So we'll see what else is left. I'm not really sure, because I don't know it that well. But yeah, we got stuff to make a bolognese, so I'm going to make a bolognese today, and then tomorrow I just have to make a bechamel to turn it into a lasagna. So that is great, because I love lasagna. It's definitely lasagna weather. We have forecast for thunderstorms tomorrow, so that is definitely lasagna weather in my brain. I've also been sick, so I don't know if I'm going to manage a bike ride. Maybe a wee one rather than a medium one, because like I've not eaten very much today because I feel sick, and have now been sick, and so I don't know if I have the energy to like properly do a big bike ride. I feel okay, except my stomach hurts, so I don't know. Back from my cycle, which is why I'm dressed like a highlighter, and I'm going to make dinner now, and because it's like 4:30, but because a bolognese takes like 2.5 to 3 hours of cooking, I'm gonna get on with making that for now. So I've been reading for 7.5 hours nearly this weekend so far, so I don't think that I'm going to make the 24 hours. Maybe I'll include Monday morning in this as well, extend it a little bit, but you know, this is just about enjoying myself, so I'm not going to make it press too hard on my life, because I went cycling instead of going cycling by myself. I went with my boyfriend, so I couldn't listen whilst I was cycling. So I'm not going to stop him coming so that I can listen to my audiobook, because that would ruin my weekend. So I'm going to make dinner, and then I'm going to have a bath, and then I'll probably be in my jammies when we reconvene to talk about some of the Anna Karenina that I've listened to between now and then. It is Sunday morning, so I managed to read for 11 hours yesterday and Friday. Oh god, sorry, I didn't realise you were on the piss there. I am obviously not going to get to 24, I'm not going to read for 13 hours today, but if I include Monday morning, maybe we will. This vlog has no deadline. But anyway, this morning I'm going to get into reading some of the actual poetry of Thomas Hardy. It is 8 o'clock, I have to put the light on, because even though it is light up there, hang on. You see the difference? You can barely see me and I'm blue. So it is forecast for thunderstorms today, which I'm very excited about. I love a thunderstorm, so I hope they do come through, and also means that it's the perfect time to get cozy indoors. Although I've had the Arctic Monkeys' She's Thunderstorms in my head for 2 days now. Alongside She's Always a Woman to Me by what's his name? Yeah. Billy Joel. Anyway, I'm going to read some poetry this morning while my boyfriend makes us breakfast. And I'll get back to you with some poetry thoughts. Hopefully. Oh, and Anna Karenina. I'm about 45% into it now. But right now, I have no thoughts. I have no brain. So I'll give you my Anna Karenina thoughts alongside my poetry thoughts in a while.
They throw in Drummer Hodge to rest uncoffined, just as found. His landmark is a Kupsha crest that breaks the veldt around, and foreign constellations west each night above his mound. Young Hodge the drummer never knew, fresh from his Wessex home, the meaning of the broad karoo, the bush, the dusty loam, and why uprose to nightly view strange stars amid the gloam. Yet portion of that unknown plain will Hodge forever be, his homely northern breast and brain grown to some souther tree, and strange-eyed constellations rain his stars eternally.
So I've come down to the conservatory to read whilst I can hear the rain. I will already have showed you. But it has stopped. It has now stopped raining. I'll talk to you about the books. That's why we're here, isn't it? So I am now of Anna Karenina, but I'm listening to it on 2 times speed, which I don't normally listen to audiobooks on 2 times speed, normally more 1.5. But the guy who's reading it reads so slowly. Yeah, I'm just over halfway through, basically, and I am still enjoying it, still finding it interesting. I think I was speaking to you yesterday about how something had happened, and it made me wonder how much longer the book could go on, because it was such a pivotal moment in the relationship between Vronsky and Anna and Karenina that it felt like there couldn't be much more. And then the next quarter of the book was entirely unrelated to Anna Karenina, and I actually think I maybe even enjoyed it more than the bits related to Anna, although I had enjoyed those as well. But it was about Levin, who is a country squire basically, and about working the land. And so it's 1877 is when this book is published, and the emancipation of the serfs in Russia happened in 1860 something. I did study this at A-level. 1861, I was right. So obviously this is set earlier than 1877, and it's a lot of the landed gentry talking about the peasants and what peasants' rights, and whether the emancipation was done correctly, whether they should have been emancipated at all. And so we hear it's a lot of men discussing politics, and also women as well discussing politics, and also the potential emancipation of women and the right to vote for women, and women's education and stuff. And I don't think we're given lots of different opinions, and I don't think that it's not oh, we super agree with Levin, who is our interlocutor in this situation. The way that it's allowing to discuss different potential ideas and opinions, and of course peasants don't have any voice in this matter, and all the women's voice who are given voices not wanting emancipation. It's not oh, I like it because I super agree with everything it's saying, but it is interesting to have that perspective. It's not something that I think, novels are quite short a lot of the time now, unless there's a lot of plot. There's not, I think I've noticed in a lot of Victorian novels this expression of ideas and this sort of maximalism in an approach to prose, where you just throw everything in and you just have an evening of conversations at a dinner party about politics, with different perspectives. and different people arguing with one another that I don't think really happens in a lot of books anymore. It feels very Victorian. I would say The Old Drift by Namwali Sapel, which I read last year, did have a similar thing going on, but it did have a lot more plot than this still, so it was not just that. But yeah, it's, you know, Russia and the 19th century thoughts and opinions. There are like communists in here, their opinions, people who want the serfs unemancipated, go back to serfdom. I feel like it's probably quite authentic to how people that Tolstoy was around were talking at the time. And so it's an insight into opinions in a historical time period. The rain's coming back. So apologies if you struggle to hear me over the rain. When I've heard about Anna Karenina, I've heard about Anna and her affair and Count Vronsky and the tragedy that this leads to. And it's not really just that. I feel like there's a lot more here, a lot more involved. Kind of like Dr. Zhivago, which is written nearly 100 years after this, but similarly explores, and actually explores a lot more different classes than this does, but it's an exploration of Russia in a time period, I think is the thing that reminds me of Dr. Zhivago. It's less confusing, although the more I think about Dr. Zhivago since I've read it, the more I feel like some sort of fondness for it. I seem to have enjoyed it more in retrospect than at the time when I was just like, I'm so confused. And I feel like it's a book that would work well if I reread it, because I would know that I don't need to worry about like the plot. I'm just going along with it. And I think this one is more accessible in terms of the style of writing, which I suppose you could say it was a surprise because it's an older book, so you'd think that would make it more difficult. Although I've mentioned on here before how I have often found Victorian literature more accessible than kind of 1930s to 1960s literature. I would say it's not particularly elegant or beautiful prose, in that it reminds me of Dickens. It's well-drawn characters and various different perspectives, and a sort of wry humour, laughing at this sort of society, I guess, which also reminds me of Jane Austen, the casual mocking of everybody in this society and all of their opinions, which I'm enjoying. But yeah, it's not quite what I was expected. We're back with Anna and Vronsky now, and there's been a big tragedy that I feel like would be right near the end of a novel now, or an English novel. I feel like the tragedy that's happened is like, surely this is like, we're going to get to the next stages, we're nearly there, but no, we're only halfway through. So it will be interesting to see how it progresses again. It might be more about Kitty and Levin, but who knows? I think his name's Levin. I've also read several of these Thomas Hardy poems. I have tabbed several of them down, you can see, because I have enjoyed them so much. I think it is interesting reading Thomas Hardy poetry because I have only really read modern poetry in the past few years. I haven't really read anything more classic like I am now, but it is poetry that I'm familiar with. Well, not all of it, but some of the poems that come up, like The Darkling Thrush and Drummer Hodge, I am familiar with. But yeah, it's interesting reading it because I feel like there's so much more attention to form and metre than necessarily happens in modern poetry. This is everything is very much stanzas, and there is a rhythm and a metre to it. There have been a few ballads, like in the traditional sense of a ballad, a long poem telling a story with repetition in it, and I have enjoyed them. Thomas Hardy is using language that I feel like is older than his time period, than late Victorian, early 20th century writing. Hardy built the world of Wessex, which is the west of England, rural England, in the period of the Industrial Revolution and the sort of end of the Poor Laws, I guess, which is not when he was around, that's like 100 years before. But I feel like the effects of that and the workhouses and everything are a big part of his poetry. And I think that partly it's the Dorset dialect uses thou longer than the like standard English, but also I feel like they're not in a specific historical time period, I suppose. They're just dealing with the world in a more like, it's almost like fable-like, but it does have that modernism, the modern butting up against the classic, which I guess was a kind of thing of Hardy's time period and the people writing around him, the way like Auden talks about him. And Auden obviously was much more of a modernist, and I don't like Auden either. Anyway, I'm enjoying the poetry. I'm enjoying reading poetry that is older and getting into that again, rather than just really, really modern stuff. Hello, so it is Monday morning now, and I am giving up on reading for 24 hours, but I want to talk to you a bit about why, and also talk to you about the books and things. I read for 17 and a half hours over the past 3 days, which is still pretty good, probably more than I usually would. So especially recently, as I took October off, I've been reading less, so I probably did read more than before, but I didn't read the 24 hours that I intended to. And for me, that was always just for fun. Like, it was a fun challenge to try and read as much as I could in a weekend. So the fact that I didn't manage it, I'm not really particularly upset about. It's just the way that things worked out, and that's fine. I think that what I discovered whilst reading poetry and Anna Karenina for this 24-hour reading vlog is that for me, reading that much works better with things that are designed to be read in a shorter period. So when I did this before, I read a short story, I read a novella, I read a short novel, and then I read like a romance book, which is always fairly easy to just sort of put on in the background and keep going. You don't need to intensely think about things. And obviously that is not true of Anna Karenina. It's intensely long, and it is a Russian classic that requires more focus and more thought if you want to have a good reading experience. I was still engrossed in the story, but I'm only about 2/3 of the way through. I could have, like, it is physically possible for me to have read the whole thing, but I don't think it would have been as good or interesting a reading experience had I forced myself to keep going and not given myself space to think about the book and to like ruminate on it. So I think that I'd made a wrong decision. So whilst I think the amount of reading I did this weekend is fine and perfectly possible for me, I would have to be more thoughtful about the kind of books that I picked in the future if I were to do it again. The poetry was perfectly fine and worked very well in this situation, because you can read a few poems, put it down, come back, read a few more poems, and you know, each poem is designed to be read in one sitting, so it doesn't really matter where you stop. The other reason that I stopped is because I'm not very well, and I've talked about this in a few different videos, I think, but the past week I'm just not very well. I am unable to eat properly at the moment, and it's really difficult to focus when you're not able to eat properly, and I don't have the energy that I would if I were eating properly. I'm just struggling. Like, this morning I was supposed to go for a swim, but I've called that off because I had my small portion of granola, and now I feel really, really nauseous. Basically living on Gaviscon at the moment, which is no fun. Like, even drinking water, it's just hurting. So I'm struggling to get through that, and so I just thought it was best to be kind to myself and not force myself to keep going when I don't feel particularly well. So that's the end of me vlogging, me showing you my weekend. I will pop back in a bit when I finish Anna Karenina to give you my finished thoughts. So, but I do think that this video would be really unsatisfying if I didn't finish the book and actually talk to you about it. So I will do that later. So I'll see you then. But for now, I'm going to be working from home today because I feel awful. I'm doing my best to not look awful, but yeah. Hello, so I have now finished Anna Karenina. In fact, I finished it a while ago and forgot that I hadn't filmed a wrap up. It is 2 in the afternoon right now, and it is so dark that I am blue. But yes, I finished Anna Karenina. I also finished the rest of Thomas Hardy's poetry that wasn't Victorian. But I did enjoy the reading experience of Anna Karenina. It's another one that I think I would have to read again to really absorb all of it, but I found it very compelling and very interesting to read, even when it's Levin having monologues with himself about the existence of God for the last like 2 chapters. I still found it very interesting, and I liked the style of the writing. I thought it was very fluid, and I think that it's a really beautiful, wonderful, interesting book with saying so much more than the like vision I had of it as being about 2 people falling in love and a bit about like a woman's experience of infidelity and the judgment of society, which is a big part of it because Anna's brother goes around. I'm sorry, my camera died and I don't have time to charge it before we lose the light. So you're going to have to deal with my phone for the wrap up of this. I apologise about that. Anyway, yes, Anna's brother gets off scot-free, just doing whatever he wants, and his wife, Dolly, was perhaps my favourite character, the most interesting character to me. The way that she reacted to his infidelity and her desires and the way she sublimates them from motherhood. Motherhood is another big theme of this book. And that exploration I thought was very impressive, coming from an 19th century man who wrote this book, to have such like different, diverse understandings of motherhood and of mental health. Anna's mental health slowly deteriorating over the course of the book, I think was done well and didn't feel voyeuristic or like over the top or calamitous. It felt honest, and I enjoyed that. So yeah, I think it was a really good book. I do think obviously it's of its time. I would say there was a moment of like mouth open shocking racism at the end that just felt really bizarre, because it was anti-black racism and there weren't even any black people. They just said it, and I was like, for Christ's sake. Like I said, the anti-Semitism and that random anti-black racist moment that was shocking to me was of its time in that way. And so if you don't want to read those things, they are very minor through the book. They're not like big themes. It's not something that happens a lot, but I just felt like I want to mention them. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think there's so much to it. It's so rich, and I think it was definitely better when I started slowing down on my reading and not trying to cram it all into 24 hours. I think it was a wrong pick for this kind of video, but overall I ended up liking it. So I'm glad I did it. Anyway, I'm glad I've read it now. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Please do remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and to subscribe. I will be back again with another video next week. No, this week. I put out 2 videos a week, so if it's early in the week, there'll be another one this week. I can't remember when it's going up. I feel like my brain is leaking out of my ears at the moment. So I will see you again very soon anyway, regardless. So thank you for watching. Please remember to give it a like if you liked it, and to subscribe. Bye bye!